So next we have Sam Spencer, who is no longer with the Parliamentary Library. Sam has worked on a number of government agency data and metadata transformation initiatives, promoting open source in government across a number of data domains, including official statistics, health and welfare management and reform, and the creation of systems for historical political biography. Sam has recently shifted to join Data 61 as the lead technical architect of the Aristotle Metadata Registry. Thank you very much, Sam.
Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, as my bio said, for the first time in quite a while, I can definitely say I'm definitely not a librarian. I was for a while, but now I'm not again. So I have a background in computer science, and I got mixed up in the library world just by accident, working with research librarians at a number of institutions, and I started to see patterns that I'd not seen before that weren't taught in computer science, and I said, wow, these people have really got their heads around information. I'm going to take that back with me. And I've been presenting myself as some kind of genius in computer science because I'm just saying libraries did it first 30 years ago. And what I'm here to talk to you today about is open data and open data management in government resources and in open source. And I want to start by saying we did it. For the last 10, 15 years, people have been impressing upon the world how important open data is. And we've done it with extreme success. Data.gov, 23,000 data sets that are up and available for the public to use. Data.gov.uk, 39, nearly 40,000 results. And Data.gov over in the US, 186,000 data sets up. That's a big number. That's a lot of information that's out there in the world. And to kind of talk about this, I want to first address how did they do it? Like, how are we getting so much information out there? And it's through That's a big number. All right, that's a big number. I reordered my slides this morning. So this is a nice little bit of clip art I found that kind of addresses it. It's called the data deluge. Like it's a really nice piece of clip art. And if you recognise it, it's from The Economist, who printed this idea, and they said data is coming at a large volume, at a large rate, and it's going to be hitting research libraries in a massive way. And they said that, well, basically lots of information is being created right now, like huge volumes of information. And now, rather than having the issue of data scarcity, we've got the issue of data coming in volumes that are too hard, just too big and too hard for us to comprehend. We no longer have the tools to manage this in traditional ways, and we're looking for ways to get around it. So how did we get here? This is the slide I thought I was going to do. How did we get here? Well, open source has taken us there. CKAN is a powerful tool that's used by institutes around the world. It's open source, it's free to install. These are all things that I love to talk about. And it's basically made it possible for institutes, universities, government, non-profits, commercial institutes even, to start accepting data publishing and storing it in a really easy to use, manageable way. And it's been hugely successful, as those numbers suggest. It's really, really opened up the idea of what open data means to the broader community. And it has been a victim of its own success. So, has anybody, I presume a lot of people here have seen data.gov.au? Yeah. No? Let's try that again. A lot of you? Okay, that's a better one. People come into contact with data.gov.au quite a lot. People come to this website because it is designed to be, and it is the point of entry for data for government resources around Australia. There are many like it, but this one is ours. And it's designed to help people record information about their data sets. I'm not going to say metadata just yet. It's information about their data sets. And it helps you record what it is, a description of what the title, a description of what that data set is, who published it, what coverage it has, licensing, publishing date. All of this really interesting information that tells you a lot about the data set. But we still don't know about the data within it. Like, I don't know what columns are in it, I don't know what's stored, I don't know how it's being managed. And this is what librarians and research librarians especially have traditionally known as data management, as metadata. What are the columns? What is the data in this set? And the reason that we need that, and this is preaching to the converted, I'm sure, is this data set doesn't mean anything to me. Like, You can look at it and you can start to make inferences about what this data is, but a data set coming straight out of CKAN doesn't tell you a lot. It tells you that there is some data, it does exist, and it gives you descriptions about it, but I still can't make very short inferences about what these individual columns mean. So, to get around that, data providers for a long time have been providing data dictionaries. So, how many people have come across the term data dictionary? Yeah, that I expected. A lot of people don't know the term. And people have done an extraordinary effort from the research librarian community to say, don't just give me your data, tell me what it is. Help me understand it. And people have been doing that. Like, there are lots of engaged, helpful citizens who've gone, okay, I'll try. And often that comes in the form of PDFs. So this is a data dictionary that's stored on data.gov.au, page 7 of 9, in a PDF that's nowhere near the data set that tells you what those columns mean. That's great. You know, I don't want to say that's bad. These people, like, they did a really good job. They said, I'll help you. I'll throw this stuff up. I'll really help you. And that's the kind of engaged effort that we're trying to build upon, is say, okay, that's cool, but I need to know how that relates to my data. Where does that actually fit in with the broader scope of what this data means? Because that's going to make this useful. It's going to make it jump out the page. And that's where Aristotle comes in. So I was pulled on, as I was introduced by Toby, as the developer of a tool called the Aristotle Metadata Registry, which again is an open source framework for metadata management. And this isn't metadata in the data about data management. This is metadata in the, this is what research librarians have said is metadata for the past 30 to 40 years. This is standards compliant column descriptors to help unlock the power of data. What it means is, okay, here's another one. I like to be engaging. I like to see hands. It shows you're listening. Hands up. How many people here have heard of 11179? ISO IEC 11179. One. That's pretty good. Okay, I'm happy with that one. So ISO 11179 is quite an old format that looks at the descriptors of information. What it does is it pulls apart the idea of what a column is and says, no, tell me more. I want to know more. Not just that it's a column, that it has a name. I want to know basically who it's about, what property you're interested in, and how was it stored. Because those three things tell me what that column is. And the example that we've got here is person age. Like, a person's age can be recorded in a number of different ways. If I ask you what your age is in years, that's going to be a different result to what your age is in months or in 5-year cohorts, but ultimately it's the same concept. If I can find every data set that tells me about someone's age, regardless of how it's stored, I've now unlocked a whole bunch more information that I can drag from. But there's more than that. Metadata isn't something that has to come with data. There are so many government data sets alone that are locked. They're open, but you can't access them. As a research librarian or as an engaged academic, you can say, hey, I'm trustworthy. I am. Thank you for laughing. I am trustworthy. I am somebody who you can trust me with your data. I will produce graphics and publications, I will put it out, and I will make sure to keep the privacy of that well contained. But not everybody can, and not everybody should have access to this information. But it's useful for us to know at a public level what information is being recorded. Not just for privacy and census and all those kind of hot topic issues, but more the case that when somebody tries to get access to data, if there's a 3-month process and multiple forms that you need to go through to actually get access to the information to see it, that's 3 months that you've wasted in research time trying to find out what that information is. If that metadata is public and I can say there's a column in this data set that has person age in years, if I'm only interested in person age in days, I instantly know not to even bother with that 3-month process. Like, that's why metadata is important, is you can publish that information, register it and unlock it and see what's in there without actually having access to the data. So yeah, what Aristotle basically is it provides a search interface to unlock the information that's in data without actually having to see the data itself. By providing access between them, we can start building up a very, very granular approach and build each component of that data description as an individual piece so I can link through. I can now find every date of birth, every age, every description of an employment status without actually having to get the data itself. So why does that work in principle? Like, so these are some prototypes that we've been working on recently, and I say recently since I started, and for those of you who know, that's about 10 days. So what we're looking at here is the idea of building a central metadata registry for information, and this doesn't necessarily have to be a government one. This is any library, any institute that's interested in managing data has a central registry of metadata that it records. Tell me about all your data as I get it so I can start looking at it. So basically, here's where this idea of our secure data access comes in, where I can tell you what I've got, but you won't see it. So that's why this is important, is it allows people to understand this context. But there's more to it than that. How does it help me as somebody who's providing that? And this is, again, one of the use cases, one of the strong use cases we're looking at is often people are giving you a CSV. Like in a research library, I did some work with some academics, and if they got a CSV, they were really happy. You don't often get much more than that. So how do you unlock, how do you process the idea of what information is available based on that? Well, traditionally it's gone up to CKAN or data.gov, and people say, tell me about it. Just tell me what you can. I know 10 minutes and you're gone. And they're never going to come back, they're never going to update it. That's how data works. Somebody uploads it and they forget about it because they've done their job, they've submitted information. Well, some people we know are better. There are metadata records that come with this information. What we're looking at doing is going, okay, send it to a portal, give me the data and the metadata, I'll mine the metadata for the registry so people can find it, and I'll send the data off to the right place. Again, we're relying on those engaged individuals. They're out there, we know they work. Are you waiting on time? Sorry. No, that's all right. So what if there was more that we could do with this? Well, we know that there are people out there who will provide us with CSVs. And again, they're doing their job. But a CSV gives us so much information. Data itself tells us a lot about that information. If I see a column that says postcode and has 4 digits in it for 100 rows, that's probably an Australian postcode. If I see a column that says postcode and is 5 digits for 100 rows, that's probably a US postcode. So I can start using that information, confirming it against my metadata registry, and building up a profile of what this data is. So that I can say this is definitely a US postcode and it's only interesting in that context. That's the kind of information that we're trying to build upon here and say, hey, if you can provide your data, we'll step you through the process, find as much information that matches that context, and push you a little bit further. And then lastly, Terria. So we've talked about a lot about data management, and that's probably one of the most important aspects for us here, is looking at how data is stored within these contexts and how people can transmit it in a way that that understanding is kept and built, not just kept, but built upon time, so that as more information goes into these systems, these kind of feedbacks allow us to build a richer context of what this is. Terria is something that sits over the top, and it's powering what's known as a national map. So again, we're going to do the hands up thing. Hands up, who's heard of national map? Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, I can see you too. So national map is basically solving a problem that I saw a while ago, and I thought somebody has to do this. So in Australia, we have a number of standard geographies. These geographies exist for us to use statistics at a national level all the way down to very, very small areas of interest to start understanding data in the Australian context. These are defined within the ABS. They're used by a number of different agencies. The Medicare, Department of Social Services, us at data.gov, and by the ABS themselves for publishing information at very, very small areas. Because these are all well known, producing maps from them should not be hard. If I have data that I know maps to a specific area, I should be able to produce a map of that against the standard ABS classifications and do it easily. And that's what the intent for Terria and National Map is. It provides a context for people to upload Australian data against standard Australian geographies and produce maps of interest of Australian areas. But what you'll notice is, looking along the left, it only operates on the data. Oh, sorry. It only operates on the data. So again, we have the problem of our column names. Somebody has tried very, very hard to put some context around what this data is, but I still don't know what it means. Now, I could bury within this interface and I could start going, tell me about the data set that this comes from, I'll open the PDF, I'll click through, I'll go to page 7 and I'll find out that AFS LIC-NUM is an Australian federal standard licensing number for businesses. No, I'm going away. I've left the page. I'm not interested. It's too hard. People are lazy. I am. Everybody is. And it's true. People are really want to see results right then and there. And that's what the web economy has kind of instilled in us is, if it's not there right now, I'm moving away. I'm going away from this. So how does metadata, like the traditional idea of metadata, help with this scenario? Well, if I'm going to get a data set, I should be able to go off and collect the metadata record and the data associated with it to build an understanding within the interface that I'm looking at, whether it's National Map or whether it's some other visualization tool, to understand what that information is. And we get this. Wow. The changes are immense, aren't they? They're small, but they're about engagement. So here I can see this has state, locality, postcode, when the license was issued. I no longer have to fight for this information. This information is now upfront and accessible. I can use this information to dig further into the data descriptions and understand the context to which that information has come from. And that's what metadata is about for research libraries, is understanding how this information was collected, how it's used, and the scope for this information. So those are the three platforms that we're looking at right now, and these are the three that I've chosen for today to kind of explore on and say, these are the tools that exist. Like, this is what open source is doing, is you're not locked out from this knowledge. You're not locked out from these ideas. We at Data61, and myself even before I joined, have often professed the idea of open source is to build that kind of community to allow people to access this information. Metadata and data management are not hard principles to enforce upon people. People are lazy, but they are generally helpful. They want to tell you what they've done because they're proud of it in most cases. We've seen that in instances in data.gov.au where people try. What we're doing is we're building the systems to allow us to capture that information in a way where that effort isn't wasted. So, thank you very much for listening. I know it's a bit short. I think it's a little bit short. So yeah, I'd like to open the floor up to questions. If anybody has any questions around what we're trying to achieve with this, I'd be more than happy to hear them.
Does anyone have any questions for Sam?
I saw some nods. I saw some head shakes.
Thanks. We noticed that the Australian Public Service has just released their data literacy plan for their servants. How do you think that growing data literacy within the public service is going to affect the same metadata standards or the quality or the amount of data that data.gov.au?
I think we've seen over the last couple of years, we've seen a growing interest in open data and data literacy in general in the public service. I think it's going to help people do the boring stuff better. People have been attempting to do a lot of this stuff before. What I think the data literacy work is around is helping them do it in a standard way so that it is comparable across institutes. But I think that from what I've seen, people generally do a pretty good job of it. It's just helping them find the education and the tools and the resources to help them do it a little bit better.
Any other questions before we move on? No? Okay.
Thank you very much, Sam.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.